then you'll need a resurrection. I'm gonna kill you with my shot selection. My dissection's opposed to perfection. If you want surrender, then consider this rejection. So when you see the bladder not won't helm, you better duck me no matter what the realm.
Hello, this is Barry back with another spear video. I want to revisit a tip that I had on my last video. Though I basically talked about standing sideways to provide the minimal amount of target area. I've actually found that there are some problems with this position. Mainly the problems are it's very difficult to defend this area over here from a very good spearman. 95% of the spearmen you're going to fight against, you're fine. It's that upper 5% that I find this to be a very easy target. Anyone that I see with their feet in a straight line and presenting themselves basically 180-degree angle toward me, I almost always start with my spear over here and I loop it around and I take a shot right there. And I get it a lot. Duke Branos teaches to move the left foot, or I'm sorry, the back foot. If you're right-handed, it might be your right foot. To move it out, I would say his position I've seen puts you at more of a 45-degree angle. Okay, so if I draw a line here, a 45-degree angle on the chest, and his argument for this is that puts your hip a little bit closer to the target, and you get a little bit of a quicker shot. And I do agree with that. What I don't personally like about being this far out is you're really presenting a big target. So we're basically trading off how offensive you want to be versus how defensive. I prefer to be a little bit closer to maybe about a 30-degree angle. If this is 0, I called it 180 before, if this is 0, go to about a 30-degree angle. From here, I still have a very offensive position. I don't have a whole lot of area exposed for someone else to attack me. And basically everything on the front, I defend with this spear out on this side, and everything to this side is basically you knock down and you slide out of the way just a bit. One of the nice things about this is with my foot maybe about 4 inches offline is when I slide to this position, all the weight goes right onto that foot very easily, and that's your defense. Okay. If the foot's in the line, you don't have that. It's very difficult to move off that way, so people have to rely on basically throwing the spear down. It's very awkward, and it's also hard to recover from. So that's a limitation that I found on the sideways stance. Okay, tip number 2, holding the center line. Okay, so I find that people have one of two problems with holding the center line. Okay, they either are too aggressive and they throw very hard shots, okay, to try to hold this line over. So they push over here and they push everything off the line, and then when a person moves to the other side, they pull it back, or they're very loose and you can just knock their spear out of the way very easily. Knock out of the way, when they come to recover, you can dip under and hit them. So basically what you have to do is you hold your center line, if somebody's pressing on you hard, you press hard to meet them, okay, and you try to provide just enough pressure to hold them from pushing you over. Unless they get very aggressive, and if they get very aggressive, I'm going to talk about how to handle that. And if they go light, then you go light. Okay, tip number 3. If I come up on somebody, another spearman, who is putting a lot of pressure trying to keep me off the center line, so they're fighting really hard, okay? They don't want to give me that line. If I knock on their spear, okay, they're pushing nice and hard. Anytime I see this person, I know that they're going to have a very difficult time not overcompensating on one side or the other, because it's very difficult to squeeze hard on a weapon and control how you're moving it. So typically if I run up to someone like that and I see them, what I do is I try not to engage with them, and I throw a lot of feints. So if they're pushing really hard to this side, I'll feint around this way, they move back, I'll feint this way, and I just basically move it as fast as I can, and I get them going like this, and I time them and I throw where they're open. Okay, tip number 4, people that are too soft with their spear, so they've got the opposite problem. So instead of holding it like really hard and trying to keep people off their line, they go very loose. These people are hard to move off of the line sometimes by throwing feints, because they're not reacting to it. They're staying nice and loose. So if they stay very loose, what you want to do with them is just come up, knock their spear out of the way. How to deal with people who duck or they bob and weave. Okay? So a lot of people you'll find when they fight, usually they're athletic people that don't have a lot of experience with spear, so they're trying to overcompensate with their lack of experience with spear with athleticism. And what they do is they try to duck and bob and weave. So their defenses are going to be a lot of head movement and ducking and moving. A big one is if I bring a shot around to this side, they'll try to duck the shot if it goes for the shoulder, or they'll do a big step and then move over this way. The key to that is the hip. Okay? They cannot duck without balancing off their hip, locking their hip. So what you do is when you throw a shot, and you come around to the position where they like to duck, come around and throw right at the hip. Okay, and you're gonna nail it. You gotta practice. You're gonna nail it every time. I've gotten to the point now where I can read somebody. If they look like they're ducker, I'll just go right for the hip. Sometimes I'll go around for the shot and I'll see that they duck it and it skips off them. Second time I go for the shot, if they're the same thing, they're probably going to do the same duck because they're successful with the first one. And then you go right at the hip. Okay, this is how I practice shots at the hip. You'll notice I got some marks up at about eye level for a 6 foot tall person, and I got some marks that are about hip level. So what I do is I start by aiming at the face on one side of the target, and I go for the hip on the other side of the target. Okay, next I'm going to show you a drill that I do to practice offline shots. I've not hit my TV yet, so I don't recommend putting a flat screen TV in this line, but basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to start aiming at the target, and then I'm going to move further and further away from the target as I'm firing at it, to get better at it. A lot of people, when they think of spearing, they think of throwing your shots straight at the target. Okay? Straight at the target. I throw a shot that I call a left hook. I'm sure there's some fencing term for it, but I just call it a left hook, which is when you throw the shot, your arm, well, it's because I'm left-handed, it's left hook. The arm is going to actually move out away from your body. You're going to create this angle when you throw the shot. Okay? In this particular shot, the actual spear tip does not need to move out. Okay, it can stay on line as long as you slip past them. And what happens when they move their shaft over, you're moving your shaft out of the way. A lot of times I'll set this up if I'm coming from this side. I'll come around and throw that shot. This is also good if you're trying to hit the guy over here. You throw that shot. Okay, but the idea is the arm is coming out about as wide as you can throw it. You have to practice this. Be careful when you practice this shot. It can put some stress on your shoulder. This is probably the one shot that I'm a little concerned about with people practicing. Throwing it, a handful. If I go to an event, I might throw that shot maybe 5 times. Like, really aggressively, I might throw it 5 times throughout the course of a day. That's not too bad. But you don't want to throw 100 of these on a Pell, putting a lot of stress on it. So I just go nice and light when I throw it. The other shot is what I call the slice. So instead of going around the spear this way and throwing out over there, you're going to step out and you're going to throw it in this way. Okay? So the idea here is you want to get your hand to move as far to this side of your body as you can when you throw the shot. And there's also another technique where I like to take the spear tip and you're going to do the spear shaft and you're going to flip it. So you're actually going to throw it out over here. It's actually going to pivot as you throw it out. So from here, I flip it, and it goes over. This shot is particularly good if you have a person on this side, so not just the person you're fighting against straight across you, but a person over here. You can throw it at their face, and you're getting your spear tip around. Rather than throwing straight at them and turning your body, you just drop it out over there. And there is a trick shot if you have room on the field, which is as you throw this shot, step out, throw that in over there. Okay, dealing with aggressive spears. There are some spearmen out there. Usually when they start getting good at spears, or even someone that are very talented, if they get very aggressive, you see them come up with the line, and they come right out like they want to kill somebody. Okay, they mean business. Anytime I see that, I usually take one step back out of the line, and more often than not, they'll turn their attention to someone else, and as soon as they throw a shot, I counter. Archers seems like something that there's no hope for. I've actually used to be a pincushion. Now I actually do very well against archers. First thing is, when you walk up on a line, take a look and see where all the archers are. The next thing you do is, if you make eye contact with an archer, the odds of him shooting at you drop dramatically. The other thing I do against archery is I've actually, in the summertime, the East Kingdom, they will do target practice as they're getting ready for Pennsic. I will actually go out there, put my armor on, and I'll let them shoot at me. Is it usually they aim for somewhere up in here, and a good duck, you can duck a lot of arrows. The other thing too is to just, as you see the arrows come in, try to deflect them with your spear. Deflect off of anything and it hits you, it's not a kill. I like spearmen to be out in front of their line as much as possible. Be a threat and make them have to worry about you. Okay, knocking spears out of the way. There's a lot of different ways to do this. You're going to have to find what works best for you. First thing is, you really want to have end of your shaft somewhere on their spear. Okay? Okay, one technique to do is to give their spear a good whack. So you're going to give it a whack. Okay? When you do that, notice how I did that whack. I gave it a little pop. Okay? I tried to keep my spear in line. I gave this thing a pop. I'm going to whack it and either shoot off of that whack, okay, or I'm going to whack it. They're going to compensate. I'm going to dip under, shoot to the other side. Okay? What you don't want to do, and I see people do this a lot, is when they come up to whack, they give me a big wind up, and I'm trying to hit it hard and knock out of the way. And every time they do that, I just dip under and attack. Okay? So you don't want to end up in a position where when you whack it, if you miss, you're over here. Okay, so you have to practice how to whack it out of the way and then shoot. That's one method. That's actually not my preferred method. My preferred method is I've got contact and I give it a good shove. Okay, so I'm going to shove and you can feel it. There's a little bit of, as you push, you can feel a little bit of pressure, and you explode off the pressure and you shove it out of the way. Okay, so instead of a whack, this is a shove. Okay, and you even slide along a little bit, you give it a good push. From there, there's also, you can come underneath and give it a pop up. Okay, you're going to pop it up out of the way. And then the other method I have is basically to use the hook. You take the hook and you yank down on their spear. I'm not trying to do dramatic movements, I'm just trying to get their spear to move so that at some point they're going to move to compensate and I can time them and attack. Okay, setting up an attack with a feint. There are a lot of fighters out there with spears that bite on feints very easily. What you need to do though is you need to practice this on the Pell. As you're coming at them, you're feinting and moving through all in one motion. Okay, I want to set up an attack on a fighter either to the left or right of the guy directly in front of me. The fighter directly in front of me is the person who is the biggest threat to me because they are the closest. Okay, unless we've got a kill pocket forming in here, they're going to be the closest person. So if I shoot somebody, if I try to kill somebody over here, this is the person who's going to kill me. That's the person who's most dangerous. So what I try to do is as I'm going for this attack over there, I set up the attack either with a feint or by playing around with the spear of this person. So what I'm doing is I need to make this person think that I'm actually going to attack them. Okay, and one of the interesting things about spear versus a lot of other weapons is that generally speaking, if you attack somebody, they have to defend. Okay, it's rare that they can actually throw a counterattack as you're attacking. So if I go to attack, they have to immediately move into a defensive position, which gives me just a fraction of a second to throw this shot over here, and then expecting the counter to come from here. And when the counter does come from here, I either back out of the way or I sweep my hand up to block. Okay, or the same thing over here. So I'm going to set up, boom. So the idea is Feint and over. Okay, feint, over. Knock spears out, over. Feint, over. Okay, learn to shoot from a relaxed position. And what I'll do is at some point, I'll relax. I'm sending a message to them that I'm going to take a breather and reevaluate the fight. What I do from this position then is I just basically fire a shot straight out of it. So if you do this to shoot, people are going to see it every time. So you've got to figure out how to either stay in this planted position as you're ready, okay, or learn how to fire out of that, but you don't want to go, okay, practice your overhead shots. What if you're behind a shield wall? What if you're in a bridge battle and there's just a whole lot of chaos on there and you can't get your spear anywhere except over the top? When you fire your spear, there are different ways to do footwork. Choose whichever one works best for you. One method is the lunge, which I do find I need to do if someone is far enough away to lunge. And that's basically, let me show you sort of a side profile. As you lunge, you're stepping forward. As you shoot, and then you're stepping back out. That's your lunge attack. Okay, so I'm stepping forward. I try not to go too far, maybe about 1 foot to 2 feet forward. Throw that a shot, and we come back out. The other one is what I call the split foot or the split step. So what you're doing is, as you fire, your right foot's going to go forward, your left foot's going to go backwards. This is going to help rotate your hips through and rotate your upper body through as you're throwing this shot. So you're pretty much splitting and you're coming back out. Okay. The third method I've heard people refer to as the kicker. This is something I picked up from playing ice hockey years and years and years ago. If you ever see somebody shoot a slap shot, as they shoot it, the left foot or the back foot comes out for balance. Okay, so as you shoot, you're going to throw, and that left foot's going to come out. I'm a little exaggerated right there as you fire the shot. And then the last one is something I've been doing a little bit more over the last year. It's actually, I noticed that Duke Branos does this. I've seen some fencers do this. And what it is as you're throwing your shot, your back foot actually kicks backwards just a bit as you're throwing the shot. Forward. I'm not exactly sure what the physics are on it, but basically I think this is used for balance a little bit. And as the foot kicks out, it throws the arm forward. So I find it to be a very fast shot that gives you a lot of range. Okay, here's another trick shot that I like to do. I call it a walking into a shot. So basically what I do is I practice as if I'm walking up to a line. So I'm walking up to the line, and as I take my last step, so I'm basically going to step forward on my last step, and I've already got the shot coming, and as I step forward, I usually do a feint, and I come around. Okay, I've got some comments on what I call goofy foot fighting. Goofy foot's an old skateboarding term, but it basically means that the wrong foot is forward. So I think most people recognize if you're going to fight with your left hand back, then your left foot's also going to be back. If you're going to fight right hand back, your right foot's going to be back. This is your very standard stance. This is the way a polearm fighter would fight. Some people will use the opposite position. I'll be honest, and maybe someone out there is going to prove me wrong. I don't know if I've ever been killed by anyone doing this. I've never seen anyone be very effective with it. I've heard that there are some people that are effective with it. I think like Duke Darius, Duke Omega, I think he used to fight this way. In order to be effective with this, the problem I have with it is it takes out all of the hip and upper body rotation. So you're only using your arm. So I see this as something that could be done by a fighter against someone like a Duke Omega who's got really strong upper body and he can just arm these shots. So if it works for him, that's fine. I do think that there is a myth that is not correct about Goofy Foot. And the idea is that with Goofy Foot, you can extend your range by a few inches. Maybe if you have a lack of flexibility in the hips, you can get further in this position than you can in this position because look at how my arms are moving out, okay? I move around here and it kind of comes back. Okay, the problem I have with Goofy Foot, and I've tested this myself, feel free to test it on your own. If I'm in a normal position, I reach out as far as I possibly can. If I switch to Goofy Foot, I'm in exactly the same position. I have not gained any length whatsoever. I can do this all day. I have not gained any length. I don't buy the argument that it gives you more range. The only thing I've ever seen out of Goofy Foot is that it's so rare to see it that it looks awkward. So sometimes I see the person and I'm not quite sure what they're doing, so I'm a little skittish around them. I have found one way to utilize Goofy Foot, and this ties back into the walking into a shot. As I walk into a shot, I can actually throw a shot off of the Goofy Foot position, but I'm not actually throwing it from Goofy Foot. What I'm doing is, as I'm in Goofy Foot, I'll actually switch my feet at the last minute. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please share with your friends.
I fought like a girl. Fought like a girl.